It's a big week for Canadian soccer, right? We have the annual members meeting or annual meeting of the members, which by itself is a brilliant. I don't want to make fun of it, but hey,
who's ready for it?
Connotation.
Who's ready for it? I am.
It's May 1st, right? May 1st to the 4th, I think it is. It's the AGM, right?
Could start off any better with your website going down.
Holy shit! Not a great weekend for Canada soccer, huh?
Holy! I know, JC. So the just a little. We are also on GoDaddy.com. We use them as a server. Someone left with the keys, I think, and forgot to update the other people about, hey, here are the keys to the website. Because they send it. I don't know if it's up right now, but it wasn't last night. I checked it like 10 o'clock Sunday night, and it wasn't up. So if someone looks right now, let's tell me
right now.
But they send notifications about your URL becoming. It's up now.
It's up. Yep. They're
okay. Up. So basically, over the weekend, someone forgot to get the keys. Whoever left said, "Oh shoot, that's right. I've been getting notifications, or I haven't because they cut their email out." And that would fall usually, and I'm not allegedly, would fall under either communications or marketing, but it could also fall under production. I don't know how they're all set up over at Canada Soccer, but there you go. There's your little insight.
It can be very frustrating. I also have another website which uses GoDaddy, and it's like any other server. And when things go wrong, it's very frustrating trying to reach people and say, please help us out. It can do your head in. So I have sympathy for Canada Soccer actually this weekend. Someone's just going squirrely.
Someone's getting in trouble, I think, a little too.
Someone tried to buy it on this podcast.
Who would that be? Would that be JC? Would that be you?
I'm not on. Yeah. Yes, I did. I 100% did. And I thought I did. And then it turns out, no, I just bought a brokerage fee for someone to broker it. And they said, yeah, so I thought I bought the website. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can gift it back to them so they can get back to the great work they do. And but it turns out I just bought that brokerage fee, and then you had to put in the amount that you're willing to spend, and they suggested between $5,000 and $12,000.
They were legitimate then.
Yes. So then I thought, well, I can't donate that much money to Canada Soccer, so I left it at that.
Also, JC, do you have a cat in a hat cover on your mic?
It's one of my wife's socks.
Oh,
yeah,
lovely.
Thank you.
It works. It's very breezy there in St. Catharines.
Is it clean?
No. It's not. That's part of the joy.
Every podcast.
Snap your head back and know what's going on.
I'm also wearing her makeup bow hat thing.
Why are you wearing that?
Or is she lying down and that's just her foot?
Are you talking to her toes?
That would be funny.
Back to the I don't know whether there'll be fireworks or not, right? But obviously a lot is going on with the new general secretary, with I'm assuming there'll be some competition for Charmaine Crooks in the president position. We'll see what happens as drama unfolds. But the search of the men's head coach is getting really interesting. Lots of names out there right now. And I'm sure that will be part of it. They won't obviously announce anything prior to the because there could be a new president, right? In which case everything changes, I would imagine, right? What are your thoughts on these names? So the names out there, we've read them all, right? There's let's just
we've written them too. We've written them and read them.
Yeah, well, the Jose Mourinho was just Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ida Karanka, Greg Vanny, Jesse Marsh is the big one as well right now. Obviously, Bobby Simoniotis, Tommy Wilden Jr. There's been interviews. They're getting towards the end of the process. What are you thinking, Dubs, right now? Is someone standing out as the hot favorite?
Yeah, I think it's Jesse Marsh, just based on what we've heard and based on what's out there. And there's no reason why not. I think his kind of brand of football, the type of communicator that he is, the way that he aligns well with with youth. Like he's not intimidated by this new generation. He's not having to change his approach at all. And I think the fact that, the timing of it is also an interesting angle, like candidates aside. Yes, you said perhaps you delay an announcement, even if you maybe know who your person is, until after the and then maybe you get that person in prior to Copa America. And then I've been having discussions with friends, colleagues about, would that work? Is that too soon? But I don't think it is for an international coach. Club is completely different, right? So would he be able to turn things around? You get that bump from a new person in. I think he gets the respect from his coaching pedigree, from where he's been, and the knowledge that he's kind of accrued along the way, playing with a variety of different setups, but albeit the same brand of kind of high octane football and that high press and all the things that he likes to do. I think that would be good. We saw Canada do really well. I think that opening game of the World Cup against Belgium, playing a style that's maybe not unlike something that Jesse Marsch would deploy. So is that the answer? I don't know, but yeah, I don't mind it.
Jimmy, is there a concern that he's American? Does that even factor in here at all? Or is he just go for the best man available?
I think at first when people heard that it could be an American, I think people are a bit standoffish and thinking, how can that happen? But when you take a step back and you really look at the big picture, I mean, at the end of the day, you want the best candidate to take this country, regardless of where they're from. That's my opinion.
Craig, do you concur?
I don't know.
Why do we hire American? Why would we do that?
Yeah.
Why don't we just hire Canadian? If the CSA are trying to push coaching badges and stuff for Canadians, why would you want to take a coaching badge if you're just skipping above hiring Americans? We've done it here in MLS. We've done it, and we're going to do it now with their international team. I have no problems with Jesse Marsch. I think he's a good coach, but there's also other good coaches out there too.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think too, though, Forrest, and we've talked about this. The Americans look after each other, right? Those players that are retiring,
do they ever?
With Major League Soccer, they'll put them in positions in front office. They'll put them in coaching positions, academy positions. They do look after themselves and give them the best opportunities and resources to be successful.
So
is this?
Sorry, Jimmy.
What?
Sorry, no, go ahead.
In Canada, we don't do that. We don't look after our own because we always think that a South American, a European, American, it's more sexy than what a Canadian football coach or administrator or anything is. So that's why we don't get the opportunities. We don't look after each other.
So do you think that Kevin Blue, coming from Stanford, and Jesse Marsch being a Princeton man, is this an American looking after an American?
It sounds that way, doesn't it, when you say it like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's maybe a little bit far-fetched, but Kevin Blue's coming in, hasn't really made a misstep, seems to be doing everything right.
Website.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say that he's probably not the person who's
I blame
who's
Kevin Blue.
the
The buck stops. The website stops with Kevin Blue.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I get your points, but okay, who would be a legitimate Canadian candidate, right? You have Bobby Simoniotis is the one that stands out, right? Having dominated CPL in the last 5 years. Because Canadians haven't been given chances, there's no one else really that kind of stands out there, I don't think, is there? Or am I wrong here?
Well, I think there's plenty of coaches that are qualified and have the exact same qualification as these individuals that are getting interviews right now. These guys are getting interviews, and there's Canadians that have actually played against these guys who have the same qualifications as these guys. But again, these Canadians aren't sexy enough, and that's why we're going after these other individuals. These other individuals have got opportunities around the world, but the Canadians won't get opportunities. Prime example is Nick Dasovic. Nick Dasovic played in the French league, played in Sweden, played in Scotland. He's a UEFA Pro coach, played for the national team. He won't get a sniff anywhere in this country because it's Nick Dasovic.
Yeah, I get you're right. But the point is, this is a Canadian head coach, right? You want a manager who's been given that chance. Now, because the Canadians haven't been given opportunities elsewhere, that's a different conversation, right? Dazo should have been given a chance somewhere. He should be a candidate because he's managed some. He hasn't been a head coach, right? So you can't suddenly give him this job, for example, right? You whereas Bobby Simoniotis has been a head coach, has built an academy, has an idea for a system, how you could reinvent the way maybe Canadian soccer is seen, you can do that. Jesse Marsh has coached in MLS, in the Premier League, in Germany. He's got that experience as a head coach. Whereas just because of the reality of the landscape, Canadians haven't been given that chance. But maybe in 5 years,
that's the whole point, right? Is that they've been given these opportunities where Canadians haven't been given opportunities, and these Canadian coaches could be just as good as what these foreigners are that are coming in and applying for this job. And until we kind of start looking after our own and give ourselves an opportunity, I can't see it. When are we going to have a Canadian national team head coach? We won't, not for a long time.
Mauro Biello, he has experience at international level under John Herdman at World Cups. Jesse Marsh doesn't have that.
Yeah,
be interesting to be Mauro right now, though. You're just sitting around seeing all these other names getting thrown around, and honestly, we haven't even mentioned Mauro in the last week or two. And that would be a difficult space to be sitting in right now.
Okay, so
especially when you're doing well.
Right. And so here's one though. If Mauro was Italian background from Italy or maybe Argentinian, and he had it on his resume, coached Montreal Impact Major League Soccer, coached the national team, it'd be a hell of a lot more sexier, wouldn't it, than Mauro from Quebec?
Yeah, of course. But listen, Mauro's had a few games as Canada head coach, and the team hasn't played well.
They haven't, but they got the job done, didn't they?
Yeah. To be devil's advocate here, they haven't played well. And listen, this team hasn't played well since the Belgium game of the World Cup, to be quite honest with you. Right, so I'm not holding Mauro accountable for that. But clearly they're moving away from Mauro at this point. He's not going to be the head coach. Whether it's in time for Copa, much depends probably on the election for the president, I would think. Because if a new person comes in, then Kevin Blue's got to address that president, because that's the most powerful person still in the country. They decide on the head coach. It's not Kevin Blue. He might put the pieces in place and conduct the interviews, but it's a president and the board in the end that has to sign off on this thing, right?
Yeah, but the legwork and the search and everything is done by Kevin Blue and this committee that he's put together. But I think it goes back to our discussion about candidates and who's really been being taken seriously, and perhaps a bias against Canadians, despite experience, despite success. So I think then you have to go back and look at who are these people. Kevin Blue admitted early on when he came in, he said, I'm a golf guy. I come from the NCAA system. I am good in the commercial sector. I'm going to talk about philanthropy and need to be like an engine of growth and revenue. But I need to hire and bring in people with footballing expertise to shore up that part of my kind of CV in the way that I'm tackling these things. So then when I hear that he's got a rugby guy leading his search for the men's national team candidate, something doesn't really align. And to me, that's a big fuck you to alumni. I'm not saying that I should be his right-hand person leading this search, but I hope to God that he's got people with footballing expertise helping him along here to make these decisions.
Yeah, and everybody's hearing now that it is Angus McNabb, who is a rugby guy, doesn't have a big football background. It's helping with this search.
That's about right.
Who else is on that committee? Do you know? I know there's lots of reports that they're tapping into ex-players, alumni. I know they've spoken to you at some point, all of you. But do you know who else? Is anyone actually at the forefront of this group from an alumni standpoint?
I've heard that there are people. I just don't know who those people are. And I feel like, Jimmy Forrest and I cover a pretty good expanse of ex-players in this country. So I think if we knew somebody who was being consulted, we'd be able to identify them, or at least say, yeah, we're aware of people who are in there, but I haven't heard anything.
Mm-hmm. Tony Clement's name's been mentioned. I think the Evening Standard had him last week. So did Josh Cloke, which is interesting. He's being Ancelotti's right-hand man for some time. He's been at some big clubs as a right-hand man, never been that head coach per se at that level, but someone that's worked with big names, big egos. Not to say Canada's got that many big names and big egos, but that's an interesting name as well. But if it is Jesse Marsh, I mean, if you remove the passport, you look at the experience. Are you Craig content that would be a valid choice?
Take away the American part.
Yeah, like just look at Jesse Marsh as a football man. Could he do a good job? Like,
Oh, I love it.
I can't get by the American part.
So that's worse for you, like to Sharm's point, like you take away the birthplace, you take away his nationality, and he was a Spaniard or he's an Italian or he's Russian or whatever.
Hire him.
That's more palatable
him.
to you, Forrest, than being an American?
Not necessarily. I mean,
so
I
who
don't
would you
know.
hire then? Who's a Canadian? If it's Canadian, you want a Canadian. I get that. Who is
Mhm.
it? Who's qualified right now? Forget who should be qualified. Forget who's been given opportunities and the lack thereof. Right now in the Canadian football world, who is qualified to take this job?
Well, Morrow.
Right, but we discussed that, right? He's had the team for what, 4 games, and it hasn't really
Right.
been great performances.
Okay, so they bring a new guy in and they continue to do the same. Then what do they do?
Yeah, I know, but I get that it might not work out. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you want a Canadian, and I get that, there's a good case for that. Who should it be?
Well, I don't necessarily say it necessarily has to be a Canadian. I would like to see that, but I don't know. I think out of all the choices, going for an American is just, I don't know.
Do you think it's lazy
It
for
rubs
us?
me up the wrong way. Pardon me?
Do you think it's lazy?
Lazy?
Yeah, like, oh, it's an American. Like they do things better than us. They've got more money than we do. It's kind of just
Yeah.
a better version of us as Canadians. And we've got a
Yeah.
chip on our shoulder and we hate that because they best us in a variety of realms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that just like the easy decision? It's like, oh, they're right there, an American. That's why I'm saying it would be better if it was somebody else, anybody but an American.
Well, I hope as well that if it is Jesse Marsh, that he does have Canadian coaches around him.
Oh yeah,
I'd like to see that.
you'd hope he retains Morrow, wouldn't you? He's got the experience of this group. He knows the group. That's an important component.
Would Morrow want to stick around, you think?
Well, that's the other thing too, right?
Copa
You're-
America or World Cup on home soil? Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
And like you said, what other opportunities are there right now? I mean, I'm not saying there aren't any for him. I'm sure he'd walk into a CPL job at some point if there's one available. But being number 2 in the Canadian national team at this current time is a pretty sweet job, isn't
I
it?
think any Canadian would jump on that.
But who does number 2 work for?
Who did you rock for?
Austin Powers, thank you.
I mean, listen, I get your concerns 100%, but just because of the landscape, there aren't that many choices, right? There aren't that many Canadian coaches to choose from. I would give it to Bobby Siminos in a second, right? Why not? He's proven where every level he's been at, but if it's not him, there just aren't that many guys who've been given that chance. Frank's.
I like
Gallup.
Bobby. I really like Bobby. I like him as a coach. I've always liked him. I've always admired the way that he does things. And if he got it, it'd be fantastic. I'd also love to see Bobby get into MLS as well to really kind of test himself at that next step, that next jump from CPL up.
Because we talked about Herdman moving from the international game to the club game, and he seems to be doing all things right with TFC early on. But then what about the flip side of that with Bobby? So he doesn't have international experience. Do you see a guy who has gone up through the academy system, very much a club day in, day out kind of routine and system and structure? Do you see that translating to the national team and the international game?
It is the unknown. It is the unknown. You don't know how he's going to handle it at the next level or international football because you don't have the experience. I think a lot of times too, when you look around the world, international coaches tend to be a little bit older. It's not often you see young coaches get in there taking the national teams, right? And I think it's because they do they gain a lot of experience at club football. They get to the highest level, and then their next step is, okay, now I want to do the national team. Right. And it tends to be that older 50, 60-year-old guy that always ends up really kind of coaching the national team a lot of the time anyways.
Okay, but in Bobby's case, is it a clearer pathway to get to, say, MLS to go via the Canadian national job? Is it easier to do that than to go from CPL to MLS?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's a good point,
It's
Charms.
it's a bigger job, right? Simple as that.
Mhm.
Well, his name was in the hat for Montreal as well, Bobby,
Yeah.
And TFC.
and TFC. So he's getting the interviews. He
Yeah.
just needs a shot.
That's
Mhm.
why the whole Greg Vanny thing doesn't make sense to me. They're very high on this guy at the top of the CSA, but why on earth would he leave the Galaxy, a team that's fighting for first place in the West? And I'm sure the Galaxy can pay more than Canada. And that's a big thing too, right? What is some of these names being mentioned, I just laughed. I mean, the Mourinho, someone dropped that Mourinho little nugget. I'm sure they called him. Of course they did, but they're not going to get Mourinho. They can't afford him. Simple as that. What does a Canada job pay? It's not what people think it is. It's well under $1 million. Well under $1 million.
Where's all this
And
money
some of
coming
these
from?
names start at 2, 3, 4 million. Well, who knows?
Right, we're in a $4 million deficit, according to Kevin Blue, right?
Mhm.
It's
Private
really-
money.
Okay.
Private.
Of which
Yep.
John Herdman procured a lot of, and he's no longer part of the system. So who's the new John Herdman? Kevin Blue, like you said it, Dubs. I mean, he came with a reputation. Part of the reason he got the job was because he can raise money in
Mhm.
the private sector, right? So I don't know. It's gonna be a really interesting couple of weeks, I think, in the Canada soccer search.
Yeah.
But
It
I
is
think
an
we should-
interesting topic, though, and it's one I think we could talk for days and days. But well, I mean, look, I hope they get it right. I hope they get the right individual to come in and lead this organization and get us where we should be.
Frank
we-
Gallup's another name that would be a very strong candidate.
Yeah, Frankie's a great coach. And then you also got Mark Watson as well. Mark's a great guy that's been around the football game for a long time.
Frank had the job before, though, of course, right?
Yeah, and he left because it was a gong show and went to LA Galaxy.
Worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, brought
Do you
in
think he's-
David Beckham.
Do you think he has
Yeah.
any appetite to get back in?
I think he would.
Yeah, he would. Yeah.
100%.
Really?
And you look at his resume. He's
Well,
won
yeah.
championships in San Jose. He's coached the LA Galaxy. He's won an awful lot. And a very good football mind.
Yeah, because I mean, he hasn't been mentioned. I haven't heard his name mentioned in any of these rumors. I don't know if he's been approached. You would hope that at least talk to him.
You'd think
He's
they
got-
would.
Well, you guys know him really well. He's got a pretty nice life though down there, hasn't he? Although the life of an international manager, you can really live anywhere. Jesse Marsh could still live wherever he's living now in the States, presumably, unless he's still in Europe. He could operate from the States, couldn't he? Base himself there still, and just travel to see the games.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, Jesse
Before-
Marsh, I find interesting just because I like Jesse Marsh. When he was at Leeds, I thought he did obviously didn't work out in the end, but replacing Bielsa is tough. But his teams play good football. At the Red Bull, in the Red Bull system, he was fantastic. New York, of course, as well. New York Red Bull.
Mhm.
Dubs, Montreal, a few years ago now. Was that before your time with Montreal?
It was. I believe he was the coach when they first made the leap to MLS in
Yeah.
2012. Yeah.
But he's got enough experience in North America to understand the landscape in North America, at least, and maybe a little bit in Canada, having coached in Montreal, which is check. That's important, right?
hmm I wanted, just before we move on, I wanted to ask Forrest and Jimmy's opinion on the timing of it. Like, obviously, you said, you mentioned the AM, and do you guys think, Jimmy and Forrest, if they have that candidate maybe already in line, they have them kind of booked as being or tabbed as the next head coach, do they pull the trigger prior to Copa, or do they leave Morrow at the helm and then they transition the new manager in afterwards?
I've got an alarm going off in my room here, so
Uh-oh.
yeah, fire test.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
So your
Sorry.
answer is yes.
Forest on fire. Forest on fire.
Yeah. No, for me, I think it's important that you get that manager in right away, because this guy needs as many games as possible with this group before
Mhm.
going into World Cup.
And that tournament experience.
Yes, and if a tournament as big as Copa America, you want this guy leading the team in there and really kind of understanding the players and going through a big international tournament like that together. And I think, like I said, the more games you can get, the better it's going to be for this squad together, where the players can understand the coach gets a better idea of the players, and you start building that relationship.
Well, it was Jesse Marsh. He holds a mean press conference, so he'll be good for clips.
I know
He's
John
outspoken.
Carver was in as well for it.
Was he in? Was he interviewed?
No, he didn't get. I don't think he got an interview. I know he put his name in the hat.
Did he really?
He's the assistant for Scotland, and he's worked with some big players at Newcastle United, with Ginola, Alan Shearer, Craig Bellamy,
Brennan.
Oh yeah, he worked here in Toronto FC as well. Great manager, Premier League experience, international experience. What they've done with Scotland's a hell of a journey that they've had, and now going to the Euro. So I know his name was in the hat. He would have been a great candidate as well, because he can deal with big experienced players, knows the international level. That's another good name. But I don't know. I don't think he's got an interview. He should have.
Well, like I said, I think we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks, aren't we? Maybe, who knows? Maybe an announcement at the Arm later this week. We'll never know.